Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Tuesday, July 29th edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm your host, Teddy Panos, coming to you from the WellPoint Studios here in beautiful, historic, and really hot and steamy downtown Lowell today. Of course, all of our shows here on the Daily Pulse are hot and steamy anyway, so in the middle of January, I'm going to make you sweat and feel miserable. And today, I'm joined by my regular Tuesday co-host. You see that there, the empty chair. And that usually means it's a Trigger 'em Tuesday edition of the Daily Pulse. But today, I'm not so sure I'm going to trigger anybody. We got a little bit of information to get out, some local updates here in the city of Lowell. A fascinating story that was in today's Lowell Sun. It was actually like a wire service story about how many wealthy people exist in the United States of America. You'd be amazed. Plus, we have an update on a shooting last night in New York City in Midtown Manhattan that is all the talk of the national news. All of that coming up here on today's Daily Pulse, and none of it should trigger you unless just the sight of my face alone triggers you, and that could be possible. Hell, you'll join my wife in that company sometimes. Just seeing me makes her get triggered. But we're going to get you a quick little update here on things going on, and we'll be back with more Daily Pulses all through the week. First, let me thank my Daily Pulse sponsors. Of course, we start with Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Mass and New Hampshire, certified appraiser in both states as well. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, a business, or a commercial property, that's the guy you need to talk to. And he's easy enough to find online, realestaterayBooten.com. That's realestaterayBooten.com. Thanks as well to our friends at WellPoint. WellPoint, the only health plan offering healthcare benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members at WellPoint. Your whole health is their whole point. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, WellPoint. Thank our other sponsors in a couple of minutes. But we start a quick medical update here in the city of Lowell. We told you yesterday, folks kind of learning about it all throughout the weekend. This past Folk Festival weekend, Bob Hoey, former Lowell School Committee member, current candidate for Lowell School Committee, suffered some kind of a heart issue. I believe it was Friday, over right before the weekend, ended up at Lowell General Hospital, med-flighted to Boston, and he, I guess from updates that were provided by John McDonough, the host of City Life, and from McDonough Funeral Home. Thank you to John for keeping everybody updated, but he has regained consciousness. He is communicating in some way, shape, or form with family, and it is hope for a speedy recovery. Today, before starting this morning, we saw that his brother Gary Hoey, big family, the Hoeys, lots of siblings there, and Gary Hoey actually posted a GoFundMe page on behalf of his brother that also provides a little bit of information as well. So we're sharing this. This is from the Hoey family, but his brother Gary Hoey says that his brother Bobby suffered a massive heart attack, happened while he was at work. Luckily, received CPR from a co-worker, which Gary Hoey says probably saved his life. Rushed by ambulance to Lowell General Hospital, they immediately operated and put in a stent. His heart, according to Gary Hoey, 90% blocked. May need a transplant or pacemaker. Liver and kidneys were damaged but can be repaired, so some good news there. In the next 48 hours, he had been at Tufts Medical Center in Boston and has made miraculous improvements, according to Gary Hoey, which was kind of what we were starting to pick up yesterday. Great to see that confirmed by a family member, blinking his eyes in response to the doctors and family questions, squeezing hands, giving thumbs up. The doctors have said that is amazing progress. Of course, he had been intubated, so he's not able to speak. Hopefully that is taken care of soon as well, and he'll be able to speak again. But Gary Hoey mentions that his brother Bobby has a wife, 2 children, 5 grandchildren, served in the United States Army, prison guard for 20 years at the Concord State Prison, and then adds his brother has a big heart and is always giving back to the community. Long road to recovery, but appreciate any support and prayers that you can offer. So there is a little snip, but as of 10 a.m. this morning, They had already raised about $4,300 toward the $10,000 goal that they have set about. Let's obviously see if we can surpass that. But for those of you not familiar with Bobby Hoey, that's him. A guy who, regardless of politics aside, a member of our community. He has served our community, also has served our country, and we certainly wish him the best and a speedy recovery. And if you're able to support in any way, financially, or as others have said, simply with prayers, anything you can do, send prayers towards the Hoey family, send support. And again, if you can, find the page on GoFundMe. We have shared the links on the InsideLowell Facebook page and Twitter/X account. So if you go there, go to InsideLowell profiles on Facebook and Twitter. Direct access to the link as well. And we'd love to have everybody pitch in and contribute a little bit and help the family along the way. But the best news of all that was Gary Hoey providing the update there and saying he's making a really amazing recovery according to the doctors. And it looks like he'll be, long road to hoe. If they're talking about things that need to be repaired. They're talking about pacemaker. Hopefully that's it and not, heart transplant. But we certainly see Bob, if you know Bob at all, fighting spirit. Don't doubt that he's going to have a full recovery. Don't be surprised if he ends up back on that campaign trail in some way, shape, or form going forward. So good news on that front, but again, long road to go. If you can, please consider helping the family of Bob Hoey with what is going to be a long recovery and obviously some physical challenges until he gets back on his feet and to full health going forward. Also, last night we mentioned that shooting in Manhattan. You probably had heard about it. It dominated the news pretty much from the early evening, 6 p.m. on through the late night wall-to-wall coverage. A man, and they captured him on surveillance video walking into a Midtown Manhattan office building, I believe somewhere in the 51st Street, 51st Ave, whatever, by Park Ave, somewhere in that area there. Walked into a giant office building, opened fire in the lobby, sprayed, then got on the elevator and went up and shot and killed a few more people. There were, at last that I checked, there were 4 dead. The gunman made it 5 dead. There was one person fighting for their life that was wounded. Really weird story in that when he got into the lobby and got on the elevators, he started going up certain floors, which indicates he had a specific target. Some lady walked off the elevator and she did not get shot. She was able to make it out. He let her go by, proceeded to go upstairs and resume his shooting. We have a little more information now about who the person is. They have confirmed his identity. 27-year-old Shane Tamura, a Las Vegas resident, I should say Nevada resident, drove cross country, got to Manhattan. They're kind of able to trace some of his steps along the way, calmly walked out of a vehicle, a BMW, I believe they said, walked through the plaza of this building, clearly visible on surveillance. He was not in any way, shape, or form trying to hide his identity, disguise it, or go on a multiple building spree of some sort. He ended up shooting himself in one of the offices. He took his own life. But what we've found out now is that police found a suicide note in his pocket. And the suicide note claimed he suffered a traumatic brain injury and made vague references to the NFL, the National Football League. There are some NFL offices located in that building. I don't know if that's where their headquarters are or what. It stands to reason it would be, but now this kid, there are also some photos and videos that are appearing on social media of him playing high school ball. I guess he was a pretty good athlete. He was a he was a good football player and whatnot. But to my knowledge, this kid never played college football. If he did, it wasn't certainly at a major college level. Didn't play in the NFL. No indication of that. No indication that he had any kind of tryouts or whatever. To this point, again, as of 10 a.m. this morning when I had been doing some searching, but he did make references to the NFL and to traumatic brain injury, which has been a major kind of issue. CTE is kind of the technical term that they use for players. You remember Junior Seau, San Diego Chargers, also finished his career with the New England Patriots, but took his own life. And a number of athletes have left instructions to have on their passing to have their brains studied so we can learn more about CTE and traumatic brain injuries, especially from sports. I believe Mickey Ward of Lowell is suffering from some degree of CTE, the famed boxer, and I believe ditto for him. When his time is gone, he'd like to have his brain studied as well. But we're learning more and more about this. It's rare that you see it pop up in such a young age. A kid who probably hadn't played football in 9 years, maybe a little bit less. As I said, is 27-year-old. Hadn't played any major college football that we know of, or certainly not in the NFL. So, but it highlights some of the physical dangers of the sport of football, which has a number of violent collisions in every single game. And he's claiming now, take it for what it's worth. We're still in the very early stages of this story and the reporting of this story and knowing more about his background. There are also suggestions that he had been suffering from some mental issues and signs were missed that something like this may have, been coming. Again, how do you see something like this coming? Even if we all know somebody who's got some kind of mental struggles they're dealing with, depression, whatever. I don't think you ever foresee something like this, or you certainly try not to, right? But we'll learn more in the coming days about Shane Tamura and what kind of led to this. My hunch is law enforcement already knows a lot more than they are saying. It took a while to learn about the note that they found on him, even though I'm sure they found that note pretty quickly since he took his own life in that office building. So there's a little more information on this story and a little bit more of an update. You are tuned into the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Tuesday, July 29th edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm Teddy Panos here in the WellPoint studios. I want to talk a little bit about millionaires and how chances are you could be one and you don't even know it. Worse, you probably don't even feel like a millionaire, but I'm going to talk about that. First, let's thank our Daily Pulse sponsors if we can. Ray Booten, licensed realtor, certified appraiser in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Thank you as well to WellPoint at WellPoint. Your whole health is their whole point. Washington Savings Bank, banking that goes the extra mile. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. TMI Properties, quality and value at every price point. Find your perfect space with TMI. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to generations of families since 1925. Greater Lowell Community Foundation, improving the quality of life through strategic, impactful philanthropy. Francis C. Preventure Insurance, the agency Greater Lowell is counted on to protect its most valuable assets. And by the Massachusetts Pirates, bringing all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City. Story on the Pirates will be dropping on InsideLowell.com today. Watch for that, InsideLowell.com. Also on our social media pages. Everything we put on Inside Lowell, also shared through social media, Facebook, Twitter, and often on Instagram as well. So, all right. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was the headline of the story. Online Lowell Sun. I think it's probably in the print edition today, but it was a wire report. It was one of these national stories that local papers sometimes pick up. But you might be surprised to learn just how many millionaires there are in the United States of America. Remember when that was a big deal, right? Everybody said, oh, I wish I was a millionaire. I'm striving to be a millionaire, but, oh, it's so unattainable. Oh, we thought that was reserved for the, in the old days, the oil barons, the Carnegies, the DuPonts, all the rich families out there and whatnot. But it may not be such a big deal in 2025, United States of America, and hell, even here in our own greater Lowell communities. The article in today's Lowell Sun states that 1 in 10 Americans is now considered a millionaire. 10% of us are millionaires. Now, I'm not there yet, but I think I might be close based on the way they kind of act. Now, I wish I knew. I wish I could confirm if I'm a millionaire, because I might quit one of the 3 jobs I'm working. And my wife might be able to quit one of the 4 jobs that she's working, since we're already millionaires and wealthy. After all, here in Massachusetts, we passed the millionaire's tax, which we were told is only going to affect the wealthy. Don't you worry about it, middle-class Lowellians, middle-class Greater Lowellians, middle-class Massachusetts residents. This millionaire's tax, only for the wealthy who don't pay their fair share and need to pay their fair share. Well, that's not as few people as we thought. 1 in 10 Americans are now considered a millionaire, which means that when you sell your home or sell your stock options, retirement funds, mutual funds, whatever other assets you have, you may become a millionaire and subject to that millionaire's tax here in Massachusetts, and who knows where else across the country they're passing these things aimed at the wealthiest. But whenever our government aims at the wealthiest, you ever notice they do a little bit more spraying with their fire? And they always seem to hit the middle and even the lower classes. Some more data, excuse me, from this article. According to UBS, it is a Swiss international bank that has looked at this. In 1995, the number of millionaires in the United States was 1.6 million. 30 years ago, 1995, there were 1.6 million millionaires in a country of 330 million people, give or take. So your chances of becoming a millionaire were about 1 in 300. Now, I'm going to bet even that number kind of surprises you, right? That, that's a lot of millionaires. You got to realize in a country of 330 million, a lot of them are kids, what is it, 2 kids per family minimum, right? So there's almost, cut half the population out of there, right, is never going to really be millionaires unless you're, lucky enough to have a trust fund set up in your name. But of course, there's some elderly folks who are living on fixed incomes. They're certainly not going to be millionaires. So even that 1.6 million is a higher percentage than I certainly thought it was. Did you? Did any of you out there realize there were that many quote-unquote millionaires even in 1995? Today, that number is 23.8 million millionaires, according to UBS. 23.8 million millionaires. Now, if you kind of do the math again, we're a country of 330 million, we'll call it, give or take a few million here or there. That's less than 1/10, but you throw in the kids out there, it's probably a lot more than 1 in 10 Americans. But that's kind of the number we'll go for. Plus there are other, there's all sorts of think tanks and groups out there that will give you their reports on how many of these and that. They all have their own methodology and whatnot. But, that's a staggering number. 23.8 millionaires. And here's one that jumped out at me. According to UBS, last year, in 2024, there were 1,000 new millionaires created every single day. Not every single year, not every single month, not every single week. according to UBS, the Swiss bank, 1,000 new millionaires created every single day in the United States of America. That's a lot. That's a lot. I'm willing to bet you can tie that into the different things that go in there, right? Homes. You sell your home here in Massachusetts, right? Think about it. How many communities, you sell a home in for $600,000, $700,000, right? It's not your $1 million home. There's plenty of those, right? Our friends out in Andover, my sister with all her domestic staff, she's got a borderline $1 million home. A lot of her neighbors have borderline $1 million homes or above that have been sold or are selling or on the market. Andover, Westford, Newton, Wellesley, all Brookline, all these ritzy communities. Somebody sells a house in that community, just the house alone makes them a millionaire because you've brought in $1 million worth of income. And voila, you qualify. But on top of that, let's say you got a $500,000 home and you sell it. And in that year, you and your spouse also made, $250,000 each, which nowadays, sadly, is considered middle class. It's probably upper middle class. But look, Massachusetts, a place with, tremendous education, a lot of high tech, a lot of those kind of jobs that you can make that kind of money. And it's not unusual to make that kind of money. It's nice. And especially anyone anyone working at minimum wage or, $40,000, $50,000 a year salaries is looking at $250,000. But, you say you and your spouse make $250,000, there's $500,000. You sell your house for $500,000. You're suddenly a millionaire in that year and eligible for certain taxes. Look, my home is, depending on, certainly not going to be on the market, but if you look at some of those estimates out there, $850,000, $900,000, maybe north of that. Throw in my income from my 3 jobs, my wife's income from her 4 jobs. We sell that house, we're millionaires. Now you throw in some stocks, right? If you have money in the stock markets, retirement, right? Mutual funds, stock market's going great. Has been going great for the last 40, 50 years, right? Anyone who invested, if you're like me, you put your money in the stock market 40, 50 years ago through a mutual fund or whatever, you're doing damn well, right? Maybe you throw in a car. Get cars. What, can you get a car for less than $20,000 nowadays? Good luck, because the used car inventory ain't great. What's the average car now? $30,000 for a low level, $30,000 plus, $35,000 for a Honda CR-V, a Toyota RAV4 or any other vehicle out there? $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for a nicer Acura, maybe a BMW, Mercedes, Volvo. You throw that in there. A lot of millionaires out there in the world. When you combine all of this, homes, mutual funds, retirement benefits, maybe you cash in a life insurance policy, like my wife will do when I kick the bucket. It's easy in 2025 to cross that threshold from middle class into millionaire status. So that number that I want to be a millionaire, who wants to be a millionaire, that meant something back in the day. Not so much now. If you look at the value of money, right? If you had $1 million in 1995 and you do the future value of money, the current value of money, if you had $1 million in 1995, what is that? What is the equivalent today? That's a formula. You're working in inflation and other, price indexes and all this other stuff. That would be $2.1 million today. The equivalent of $1 million in 1995, 30 years ago, is the equivalent of $2.1 million today. Now, who wants to be a 2.1 millionaire? It doesn't sound as sexy as who wants to be a millionaire for a game show. Certainly doesn't sound as sexy for a tax, right? The 2.1 millionaires tax versus the millionaires tax. So we just say millionaires tax and we lump everybody in on that standard. But should we be putting everybody in that standard? Because if 10% of Americans are now considered millionaires, 1 out of every 10, and you got to figure there's a lot of bleeping kids in those numbers of Americans, right? That's an interesting little fiscal reality that folks should think about. Being a millionaire today is not what it once was, but man, when your government looks to tax you and call you wealthy, just be advised, you may not be as wealthy. Well, you probably know you're not as wealthy as the government thinks you are, but the government thinks that you are certainly wealthy, as long as they have a millionaire's tax and other things. By the way, another interesting little thing there, obviously, minorities, not as many millionaires in minority groups. But an interesting little thing, Asians outpace whites. There are more Asian millionaires today than there are white millionaires, Caucasian millionaires, which is really interesting because when you figure what's the population of Asians in the United States of America versus Caucasian, right? It's still, 40, 50 something percent. I think it's still over 50%, over half of Americans are still considered Caucasian, though that number is getting smaller and smaller by the year as the demographics switch. Certainly the number of Caucasians, whites, outpaces the number of Asians, and yet the number of Asian millionaires is more than the number of white millionaires. Interesting for a racist country, huh? Maybe we're not as racist as some people might tell you. One thing I wasn't sure that I'm curious if Indians, not Native Americans, but Indians from the country, people from the country of India and their, American descendants, if they're included in that number of Asians. Because if you look at the income by race/ethnicity, Indians are number one in the United States. They make the highest average salary or median salary. I think it's, last I looked, somewhere around the $140,000, $150,000 range per individual. Asians were second, by the way, in that number, and then came whites/Caucasians third. Again, for a supposedly racist country, not bad. If you're Asian or Indian, there's some opportunity in this land of opportunity, despite the fact that you certainly are one of the groups that, is not considered Caucasian. I thought, so when I saw that, it makes sense. The average income of Asians is higher than Caucasians. So it would stand to reason that you'd have more millionaires who are Asian than Caucasian. I wonder, I couldn't find this in the report, but I wonder if within those numbers, there's also a separate number for Indians, or if they're included in that number as Asians. It still would mean that's still a really interesting number. I think that's a very telling number. Even if you combine Indians and Asians as two separate groups and then combine them to outpace Caucasians as number of millionaires, again, simply because half the country is Caucasian. So there should be more millionaires, but there aren't. If they don't even count Indians in that number, along with Asians outpacing whites in terms of millionaires, that's a really telling statistic. And again, not too shabby for a supposedly racist country. All right, that's it. I promised you a short show. I'm giving you a short show. Plus, I started late, and I got to get this thing uploaded by noon, which isn't all that far off as well. We've got a busy week on the Daily Pulse. Every week is a busy week on the Daily Pulse. Tomorrow, former Lowell Mayor Bill Samaras will join us. We're going to talk more about the Market Basket family saga. Some news late last week, over the weekend. 2 more fired execs now speaking out and not holding back. We have learned through news reports that the families are headed towards mediation. Arthur T. Demoulas and the sisters / brother-in-laws who are on the board of directors. Apparently, mediation is scheduled for, I believe, September. So we're going to go a little bit more in depth into the Market Basket family saga tomorrow with former Lowell Mayor Bill Samaras. On Friday, Leslie Boder will join us for our week in review. Plus, we'll have a little bit of fun with Leslie, who is one of the big stars of the Folk Festival. She was out all over social media posting photos and winning over fans out there. So it'll be good to have Leslie here. I don't know what I have scheduled yet for Thursday, but there'll be something. Do also want to let you know about some upcoming shows on InsideLowell.com, upcoming podcasts. We're setting up a series of candidate debates, races that will have a preliminary election on September 9th. We've already set the date for the District 3, the Belvedere Candidate Forum. We've set the date for the District 7 Candidate Forum. That is the Acre District. We got a date confirmed with Paul Ratayem, Jose Cervantes, and with Sidney Liang. And we're all so close, just one candidate confirmation away from having the debate date set for the District 8, the Upper Highlands debate. John Dakota, Francisco Maldonado, and Marcos Candido. So stay with Inside Lowell. You know by now, we're less than 3 years in. We have kind of become ground zero for political and election coverage here in the city of Lowell. And of course, that also includes election night. September 9th, the preliminary election, November 4th, the general election. We'll be going live at 7 p.m. each of those nights, bringing you analysis, results. You get them fast, you get them first here on InsideLowell.com, and talk about what that means going forward. Election night coverage live here on InsideLowell.com. You can see it on our website or on our YouTube channel. And speaking of live, I want to offer a little hint. People have said to me, Teddy, we love what you're doing with the Daily Pulse. We love what you're doing with all of your podcasts and writing on Inside Lowell, but we miss that live interaction that we used to have with you on the radio station every morning, 6 to 10 a.m., where you could say whatever you wanted to say, just like I do now on the Daily Pulse, but we could call in and talk to you. We could text in and talk to you. And we kind of miss that instant feedback. Well, for those of you who do, I'm going to tell you that starting this fall, at some point this fall, we're going to do a Daily Pulse show live. One show a week. We'll start with a show a week and see how that goes. But we heard what you're saying, and we like to give the people what they want. We're like the Kinks. Remember that musical group, that old music group, right? Their album, Give the People What They Want. We here at Inside Lowell want to give the people what they want. And if you want some live interaction, by golly, we're going to give you an opportunity to do so. And by the way, there are some folks who've wanted to learn a little bit more about the newest member of the Inside Lowell team, one of our newest insiders, in particular, our Westford insider. Her presence is all over social media, at least in sharing information, but we think it's about time that we kind of let you folks meet her and learn a little bit more about her and her personality and how it perfectly dovetails with everything we're trying to do here at Inside Lowell. We're trying to give you serious information. We're trying to give you news. We're trying to give you events, but we're also trying to give you a little fun and a little entertainment along the way. Our newest insider, Lindsay Hanrahan, can do all of the above, and she will make her Daily Pulse debut as part of our live show. I promise you, you don't want to miss it. You think I'm sarcastic? You think I sometimes have an edge? You think I can trigger people? Oh, just wait till you get a load of Lindsay. You ain't seen nothing yet. All right. Thanks to everybody for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow with a Wednesday edition of the Daily Pulse. Till then, everybody stay safe. Please, 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 please stay cool. Keep an eye on your elderly neighbors and anybody with health issues. Pets, of course. Don't take your dogs out on the pavement like you did all through the folk festival, please. And we will catch you on the other side.